folks, Captain Mike here from Hoagie Lure Company. And today I have a fun Hoagie how-to where I'm decomposing a really cool shoot that we produced with Salty Cape TV with Captain Ray Jarvis of Salty Earth Charters. Now the title of this episode, which you can check out here, is Striper 3 Ways. Now this shoot was set just off Martha's Vineyard, a spot called Devil's Bridge, where they fished an entire tide for striped bass. Now, when they first got on scene, the #1 lure in the shoot, #1 in order of appearance, I should say, was the Hoagie Dog Walker, where they were fishing the swing in the rip, casting up tide, letting the bait work its way down. So let's just take it to the tape real quick here.
So we're really just focusing on shallow water feeds where bait is getting pushed up and over shelves and over ledges and stuff like that. And the approach is either surface or subsurface, but again, it's going to be, for the most part, a pretty shallow bite. Good morning, welcome to Salty Cape. We are tight, first cast, and on the rips here in Vineyard Sound. We're looking at fish that are feeding on squid, and we can kind of tell that by the size of the birds here in the area. We got larger birds that are kind of taking their opportunity to eat squid that come up on the surface while they're being chased by bass. So basically we kind of approached the rip here, started throwing some top water right on the seam where the water changes from calm to a little ripply, and went tight. Nice fish, probably 30 inches or so. We're here on the rips in Vineyard Sound, and these fish are feeding on squid, so we're throwing the dog walker here in kind of the new sand eel pattern. And not necessarily representing a sand eel, but reminiscent of the squid that these fish are feeding on as well. And really, that color is pretty close to the color of these squid that are coming up top. So we'll get this one back in the water and see if we can get some more.
Now, as the tide advanced, the fish went down and they were fishing deeper and deeper. So they switched to a vertical jig presentation, and they were using the Hoagie Squino jig. While it's known as a top tier groundfish jig, it also works really well for striped bass, particularly in this day where they were keyed in on squid. Well, I'll let you check that one out too.
The fish have kind of gone subsurface on us, so we're just putting the presentation down to them. And so I just got hit right there. We're switching to jigs, and looks like it's working. We were marking them on the sounder, and basically we were just dropping our Squino jig down to the rough area where these fish were holding in the water column. At that point, it was really kind of a snap jig retrieve that they liked. So we would really just snap that jig, let it flutter back down, snap it again, let it flutter. And it was on the flutter, on the fall, that we would get most of our takes. First pass, the fish responded. We just set up tide like we were when we were casting topwater plugs, and got the presentation down there. So as we approached that hump that we're fishing, we were ready once we came to the fish. Basically saw them on the fish finder, and we were jigging. We almost immediately went tight.
Now for the third way, they went back to the very squiddish Hoagie Dog Walker, where they were sight casting fish. There was just fish cruising on the surface. And the great thing about the Hoagie XL Dog Walker is in the medium size, it has a very nice light entry in the water. It's easy to cast and very accurate to cast. So you'll see it here where they're going to properly lead a fish, work the bait, and get the job done.
This morning we started off on some rips towards the sound, and as that bite started to shut down, we switched gears and found another pile of fish in slightly deeper water, but still on a similar type rip. So we just stayed with the moving water, but these fish were really at our second spot, we're really right up top, feeding on the surface, just sipping sand eels, and definitely a little spookier, a little trickier to get, but again, we found success with the dog walker, and you know, we really had to kind of be a little bit more visual, kind of keep an eye on where these fish were as they moved around. But you know, once we got an eye on them, we could kind of lead the school with the plug, and you know, with the plug right in front of them, they were responding well. Right here, dude, look at all those fish. These fish are pretty fun size and just blowing up on this plug left and right. We're on a crazy amount of fish out here. They're just sipping sand eels. We're throwing a sand eel colored dog walker here, and it's a great imitation of what they're eating, and they're responding to it pretty much immediately. You know, we're getting follows every cast. I think they're so tuned in on the sand eels that they're being a little bit finicky, but bright sun, light wind, so they were definitely finicky, a little bit picky, but the approach there was really to kind of get into them while they were feeding, which wasn't an aggressive feed by any means, but you could tell when they were feeding, when they're rolling on the surface. And, you know, leading these schools as they're pushing water, let's say to the right-hand side, we cast ahead of the school, bring our plug through them, and once we could see fish behind the plug, at that point we could kind of change our cadence accordingly and get those fish to react.